Well, hello once again, Clone Wars fanatics. This is another awesome episode of Customizing the Clone Wars. This is episode 42, and I am your host, as always, Peak Obi-Wan from Peak Obi-Wan Custom Creations on Facebook. And along with me, I have my co-host, and his name is Darth Daddy from the Customs for the Kid blog spot. And I'll tell you, Brian, this episode has got to be from the Force because just celebrated my birthday on Friday, and I turned 42, and here we are celebrating 42 episodes so far. So good news, folks. If you haven't seen our show, there's 41 other episodes just celebrating the Clone Wars, and what a great show it is. How you doing tonight?
Not too bad. Happy birthday. I got a Star Wars friend on to help you celebrate.
Hello there. It's your old friend, Ziro the
Hutt. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, man. So guess what, guys? We have a special guest, and that is none other than Jimmy Mack from Rebel Force Radio. How you doing tonight, man?
He would like to join you shortly, but I think I feel the time for a little while to say happy birthday to you, Ziro the Hutt style. Yeah.
Well, that's something.
You do a very good Ziro the Hutt impression, I have to say.
Has anyone seen my snooty? Where is that woman?
No, seriously, man, happy birthday. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Yep.
You know, all you had to say to me was, we're talking Ziro the Hutt, and I cleared my schedule. I said, let's get back into it. It's been a while, really, since I have seriously delved back into the Clone Wars. It's been about 3 or 4 years now, thanks to Star Wars Rebels and, of course, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, a bunch of cool comics and collectibles and all this stuff. I've been filling my time so much, I have not taken a step back to look at that amazing series. So I'm thankful for you guys for putting it back on the front burner for me, because I sat back and watched some episodes of the Clone Wars this weekend, and in Blu-ray, beautiful big screen, and it really just took my breath away. Don't remember the episodes looking half as sharp as they do now, and I think this is a series that keeps getting better with time. I think time has treated the Clone Wars very nicely, and I think people can look back at it and appreciate it now for the masterpiece it was.
Yeah, I think as well as just how fantastic it is, we've seen just Star Wars fans come out of the woodwork. You guys were, championing. I can't even say that word.
Champion. We are the champions, my friend.
Saving the Clone Wars. We even have now finished the Clone Wars, right? And all different types of avenues where the Clone Wars is at the forefront, right?
Oh my God. Well, Clone Wars at the time was the only legit Star Wars that was being released by Lucasfilm. And of course it was being the whole thing was being oversaw by George Lucas himself. And it's noticeable. It's just noticeable when Lucas has his stamp on storytelling. There's a richness to it. There's a cinematic quality of the Clone Wars that I think is unmatched in TV today. And this is a series that debuted, almost 9 years ago. So it's obvious that George was putting a lot of his own finances and resources into making this thing something that we've never seen on TV before. And I'll even challenge current television animation producers to find any level of standard that matches the Clone Wars. I think it's hard to reach with corporate budgets and everything, without the watchful eye of George Lucas, sort of thing will ever be attained again in television, as far as the richness, the quality of the storytelling, and all the research and development that went into each episode,
Absolutely. What would you say your first impressions were when the Clone Wars first came out way back in 2008?
I was like, wow, they sure look like they're made out of wood. They looked very wooden to me. I felt like the lip sync wasn't quite there. I felt like Ashley's character, Ahsoka Tano. I felt like that character needed to develop a little more and be a little less immature. Thankfully, that was seen to almost immediately, in my opinion. That was a character who we saw develop and evolve over time into, a character that's absolutely beloved, one of the most popular characters in Star Wars of all time. But you got to remember, at least for the first half of the life of this series, fandom was very cold about Ahsoka, and Clone Wars in general really. In my opinion, it had a hard time finding its footing at first. So it didn't really go over, but as a television show, I think it went over really well. And then, of course, after the show was canceled, I think it had built up such a strong enough following that fans who were sort of on the border, kind of not sure if they should tip their toe into the water, when Clone Wars hit Netflix, then there was a level of accessibility where I think a lot of people finally said, okay, I'll give this thing a shot. And it turns out that binge watching the Clone Wars is an absolutely amazing experience. So
absolutely.
A lot of people jumped on board with that. But, going back to my initial feelings, so I felt like the characters look wooden. I loved the performances, and I really did like the animation. It took a little while for the animation to soften up a little bit and kind of it just I didn't know where it fit into Star Wars at first. The other thing that I found sorely lacking was the John Williams music wasn't there. And we spent a lot of time talking about that in various roundtables and stuff over the years, but that was something that I felt like was really necessary. So we got little bits of that along the way too. But I get it now, looking back on it, I get it. It was a show that was made to push the boundaries, and that's why I think reception was a little off to it at first from most fans, is because they just didn't. They, like me, didn't know where it really fit into the Star Wars saga on a whole. And it took a while for that taste to develop. It was an acquired taste, I think, fandom had for the Clone Wars. And those who stuck with it from the beginning were greatly rewarded with some incredible Star Wars storytelling along the way. Sure, the show was hit or miss because it was so experimental. But when it hit its stride and really focused on characters and expanding the saga on a whole, then I think it was really some of the most incredible Star Wars storytelling of all time. And so thanks to this conversation, I am jumping back into Clone Wars again, and I can see myself sitting there and really starting to devour these Blu-rays as we move into the fall season. Because I got to be honest with you, I don't think I ever actually sat down and really watched the Blu-ray. I had the DVDs for the first few seasons, and I have the Blu-ray releases for the last couple of seasons, but just watching some of those Blu-ray episodes, my breath was taken away.
Yeah, I don't get those. I don't actually have those myself. I've been really taking advantage of Netflix, like you said, and this week we know that it's going away. On
Tuesday,
Netflix.
right?
Yep, Tuesday. Did you know that?
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I was hoping that there'd be another Save the Clone Wars on Netflix movement, but not
right.
Well, I think contracts are difficult to protest sometimes, especially on that level. But, that is unfortunate because it has done a lot to bring the Clone Wars to people who might have been standoffish about it or unsure. And also there's a whole audience of Star Wars fans who hit Netflix who've never even heard of the Clone Wars before. So that brings new fans into the fold as well, which will eventually help and aid the longevity of these characters. We're seeing a lot of their storylines being picked up in Star Wars Rebels now, and that's not by coincidence. It's because of the popularity of Clone Wars and the fact that fans have spoken out and said this is something we still want to be hearing stories about in this era of Star Wars. We still want to get that, so it doesn't fall on deaf ears, folks. And right now it seems like the storytelling is definitely focused more on the future of Star Wars beyond the original trilogy, or within the original trilogy era with Rebels, Rogue One, and the Han Solo film. But never say never when it comes to that prequel / Clone Wars era. I could see that coming back as kids who grew up on that show. They start to find their own careers and settle down with families, and they find themselves with disposable income because it's the dollar that matters. And so if Disney takes note of a nostalgic atmosphere for Clone Wars, it'll come back in some way. It will come back.
I'm hoping so, because that's the Star Wars my son grew up on. So I'd really like to see it not forgotten.
Yeah, my boys too. Every Friday night, it was Taco Bell and Clone Wars. It was fantastic.
Yeah, there's
They were
nothing
little,
really
you know?
like it. Yeah, there really isn't anything like Clone Wars. It just really stands apart, like you said. It's just really amazing. I've become accustomed to having a TV show along with the rest of the Star Wars. I want that. I don't want that to go away, and I hope Disney doesn't go away from TV shows. What do you think? Do you think they're leaving conventional animation to go after live action more readily?
No, I see no slowdown in Lucas animation or Star Wars animated shows. I think that there's definitely been a proven audience for that. It's a great way to develop younger fans, as I said, and make them into people who will go to the box office when those theatrical releases hit. And I think that there's always going to be a Star Wars presence on TV with the reach of the Disney Corporation owning ABC, having the Disney cable channels, etc. It's always going to have a home. There'll always be a way to distribute this sort of content. And I don't see them jumping into the live action realm as far as TV shows go, at least for another decade. That's what I predict. Yeah, and that's the first time I've ever really spoken that out loud, but I can't see them developing a Star Wars television show for at least another 7 to 10 years. The focus has got to be on the films and, on the animated stuff too. It's a good way to tell Star Wars stories without breaking the bank over at ILM and hiring actors and everything else. It's a very viable way to tell Star Wars. And I'm surprised it took so long for there to be Star Wars animation in the first place. Yeah, we had droids and Ewoks in the 80s, but that's not really what I'm talking about.
Right.
Legitimate expansion of the saga told, from the perspective of core characters, featuring those situations on a bigger galactic scale. With the Empire and all of that. So
I hear you. Wow. Well, let's get into this episode. That's fantastic. Thanks for that insight. It's really great. As we said earlier, we're doing a hunt for Ziro, and we are in season 3. It's called Secrets Revealed, and this is kind of where we're kind of moving from the secrets, the prequel episodes, if you will, and we're kind of starting to move into the sequel right after the story and whatnot, or just a little bit from, I believe it was Hostage Crisis, where we saw this story was left last, because we just talked about Evil Plans, and then they go into Hostage Crisis, and then we get this story, and let me read this real fast. It says, after being freed from a Republic prison by bounty hunter Cad Bane, Ziro the Hutt finds himself wanted by the shadowy Hutt Council, or as Cad Bane would call them, the heads of the 5 Hutt families.
Yes.
The original air date for this was November 12th, 2010. And it put Ziro as a different, they painted a different picture, didn't they, for him? What do you think? When we first saw him in the theater, there were impressions, right? There were people saying very specific things, like he was very flamboyant, or he was very colorful, and he
effeminate.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that he'd end up where he was today, right?
Now, hold on a second here, okay? Let me flex my Hutt muscle, if I might. Now, listen. me and Snooty have been a public item for years and years at this point, so you have to assume that my masculinity has fairly been well established in canon.
It's so true. It's so true. I loved that they put these two together. It was really fantastic.
It was love. It really was love. Snooty felt otherwise, I believe. I have 2 gaping blaster holes in my chest to prove it, but you know, women.
But yeah, okay, so Ziro, Ziro was flamboyant is the word to use, right?
Yes, yeah.
But he was he had a lot of style. Mm-hmm. That's one thing for sure about Ziro. He had a lot of style, and his problem with his fellow Hutts, though, that's the thing that really promotes his downfall in the end. Is not only is Ziro messing with the Republic, he's messing with the Senate, he's messing with the Separatists, and he's also messing with the Jedi. If that's not good enough for him, he's screwing over his own kind. This guy has allegiance to no one, no one. So obviously, his downfall was in the cards no matter what, because he had so many enemies. Unfortunately for Ziro, the safest place for him was in that prison cell.
That's right. Yep.
And he was only taken out of prison to be put back into prison. Essentially, he was moved from one cell to another. He thought he was being busted out by his fellow Hutts, maybe out of fellow Hutt respect or whatever, but they put him in front of that Hutt council, and then the next thing you knew, he was behind bars. That's so, place for Ziro to go.
He even made Mama upset.
Mama upset. Mama.
Mama.
Oh man,
she's got all those starfish sitting up on top of her head.
I know. So here we have. It says love comes in all shapes and sizes, and of course that leads us right into the movie, right into the episode. And stepping back for a moment, we get Quaylen Voss also is in this episode. This is the first time we actually see him. What did you think of him in this portrayal of the Clone Wars?
I know myself personally, I didn't like the voice that they used for Quinlan Voss, because I didn't really, when I used to read the comics, I personally never thought of him as like having that surfer persona, or that California. Yeah, that kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that. I always had a different perception of him in my head. So to see him re-envisioned that way caught me off guard.
It's funny because I flash back to 2010, the night that this show debuted, this episode debuted. Mm-hmm. And we had just gotten back from Taco Bell. And my son Michael was 10 years old at the time. And when Quinlan Voss jumps from that Republic ship down onto the platform at the beginning, and he's, Obi-Wan says something to him about his punctuality or whatever, and he said, "That's your opinion, man." Yeah. I'll never forget, my son yelled out, he goes, "He's a dude."
He's a dude.
Dude. And so uncommon to see a Jedi dude, but that's exactly what Quinlan Voss is. And so I think it's kind of refreshing to have him being all like surfer guy or whatever you want to, say about him. I like that about Quinlan Voss. I think that's a cool little fabric that wasn't there until he appeared on the scene with Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. And I think it makes him a more human character. Sometimes these Jedi can just be so stiff, and Quinlan Voss is the antithesis of that.
Antithesis. It ain't that easy to say, fool.
Antithesis.
What's the matter? Is your tongue swollen in your mouth?
Yeah.
But so he's just, to me, Quinlan is a breath of fresh air on the Jedi scene.
I agree.
Clone Wars. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed, did you either of you read Dark Disciple? It seemed like that wasn't as heavy-handed when it came to the way he was depicted in the book. Did you notice that?
Oh, is that right? I did not. I skipped that book.
Oh, it's a
I've
good
had
one.
trouble latching on to the new EU. I've had trouble latching on.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, a friend of mine who's been a longtime Star Wars fan, he has been asking me for book suggestions lately. And I've yet to suggest he read one of the newer EU books since the reboot. I keep suggesting older books like Darth Plagueis, Kenobi, Tales of the Cantina, stuff of that. And of course, the Heir to the Empire trilogy. But I just, I don't even know what direction to push him in when it comes to these new novels. So
I liked Lords of the Sith. That one was pretty good. That was about Cham Syndulla and conflict that was going on between the Emperor and Darth Vader when their Star Destroyer crashes on Ryloth. That one was pretty decent.
yeah, I should give that one. That's one I didn't give. Tarkin and Lords of the Sith, I gotta jump on board with. I'm up to speed with the current Aftermath trilogy. I read the Bloodlines, which is all right.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And Aftermath had Clone Wars characters in it. Actually, there were a bunch of them.
Did they really?
Sure
I started Aftermath and I couldn't finish the first one.
Yeah, the first one was. First one was a rough read. Yeah, so I haven't, but I should circle back around to Dark Disciple because you're so right. That tells a story about Quinlan Vos in Asajj Ventress, and I need to get that into my personal head canon because I feel myself getting back into Clone Wars. What I want to do, and I haven't, I don't know if you guys have done this, but I haven't, is that there is an actual chronological way to watch these episodes in a certain order.
It I think totally changes your perspective of the show, and it's actually a much, not that it was ever a bad watch because I always enjoyed it anyway, but after seeing it chronologically, it's so good. It's really good.
When we originally reviewed these shows, that was often a point of contention, was that some episodes would air later in the season that would have occurred earlier in the season or from the previous, it was hard to put it all together. So, just as far as continuity goes, I think that, binge watching that way in the actual chronological order is the way to go. So I'm going to give that a shot, I think.
That's what I would really like.
It's definitely worth it.
A set that actually has everything in order. That would be great. And that's why we liked Netflix so much, because you could jump around on Netflix.
Yeah.
Without switching discs.
Yeah, without switching discs. Right, exactly. Definitely give the first part of it a try. I always recommend that to everybody because actually the first episode is Cat and Mouse, the one with Trench.
Yes.
And then it goes right into the next one, Hidden Enemy, and then you go into the theatrical release. Right. And it just, if you watch those right away, just straight away, it just gives you a really full picture of what the Clone Wars is.
Just to give myself a little Ziro refresher,
yeah,
I did fast forward through the theatrical release just to see Ziro's scenes, his introduction and whatnot.
Yes.
Just to relive those magic moments. And boy, oh boy, it didn't bother me as much, but hearing Ashley call that lovable astromech, calling him Artui, that's a crime. That's a crime against nature, friends.
Oh boy,
that is socially unacceptable. Artui, no.
Yeah, it had to grow a little bit on you. They had to kind of grow out kind of the funniness, right, of a TV show. I complain about droids that way.
Lucas always said that droids were thought of as appliances in the Star Wars universe, and to actually personalize them was something very rare. And so I think that's why it's way out of left field for Ahsoka to call the droid Artui, and then like it'd be like you calling your toaster Joan. Yeah, I don't know. It's just it doesn't work for me. Yeah,
I hear you. Yeah, I often I have a name for my car, so I call my car Frankie because he's basically it's an old car and it's falling apart and it's green and everything. But that makes a lot of sense. You don't want to get too cutesy, especially in times of war, right? Intergalactic war,
right. Yeah. It destroys some of the level of tension when stuff like that goes on. So
That's true.
I don't know what they were thinking with R2, but thankfully it didn't stick. So they dropped that shortly after the release of the film. R2. What the?
So we'll bring it back to this episode here, the hunt for Ziro, and we find Ziro the Hutt at Gardula the Hutt's castle, and we actually get to go to. I love when they go to new planets, and we go to now Hutta, and we find out that he has a journal with their nefarious deeds. You know, the terrible deeds that the 5 Hutt families have done, right? So here he's basically threatening them. Like you said, they don't really have, he doesn't have any allegiance to these people because they're basically going to lock him up and they know it. He's like, yes, take me to my room. It's probably a prison.
Yeah.
One prison to another, right? One prison to another. So we find that out. And here is, we're going to go into the customs now. This is my original paint of the classic Clone Wars Jabba the Hutt. This is just a total repaint of that character. If you're seeing that there, I did this way back in 2010 when that first pack became available. So it's just a simple repaint. Darth Daddy, of course, is going to share his a little later, and what he did, he kind of changed the jaw line a little bit, and I'll let him explain that as we go along later in the episode. But I just thought I'd share some of these pictures here, and that's kind of what we do.
That's very nice.
Yeah, appreciate it. Myself, I'm a painter, but I was a painter for a while. I'm in the arts, so. And then these are a couple other characters. You saw Dagu Flask. You know, you learn some of the characters' names as you go along, these background characters. And you see this Weequay guy here. And that's another character we did. It's a shame we didn't really get characters like this, these Weekways. I would really like to see them made for the collection. But
thankfully, we got the King Llama at least, so we could have, you know.
That's true. That's true.
From him, but he still wasn't part of Hondo's crew. So
yes, indeed. And so here we have Gardula the Hutt, and she's definitely pretty amazing, don't you think?
Oh yeah, I started a realistic version of her a couple of years ago that I never finished. I got like the first layer. Actually, I have her right behind me.
Oh, let's check that out real fast.
Yeah, I just have to. I still have to put the wrinkles in her skin and stuff.
Oh, wow.
She's based on a drawing that I found online.
Awesome.
But yeah, basically, all the smooth area here is the area where I still have to add all the wrinkles in. I basically just added like the foundation layer, and I painted her so my kid had something to play with for now. But
very cool. So tell us about Jimmy Mack, the collector, the collecting guru. You know, tell us a little bit about your experience as we've gone along since, I don't know what, 1995 it came back. Did you follow it from start to finish? Do you have Clone Wars toys as well, or just
oh my God. All right, well, number one, I'm not a collecting guru. I am, however, a collecting addict, and I do have a problem. And I'll admit that to you guys right now.
yeah,
it's a problem that's 40 years in the making. But it all started way back when in 1977, summer of 77, when a Tusken Raider action figure fell out of the bag of the loaf of bread, the Wonder Bread. It fell out there. And that single action figure started the whole thing. Once I got that, then I wanted to see the film, and the dominoes started to fall. And I still have that actual trading card in my stash to this day. And unfortunately, guys, I can't share my video with you this time around. A lot of my stuff, my house is going through some construction work, so a lot of my stuff is boxed up, and I have no idea where my laptop or my webcam is. So, and I can't show you guys some of the Star Wars room. But so yeah, that's right. I have a room. I know you guys do too. So this is nothing uncommon for junkies like ourselves. Okay.
Yeah.
My dad always used to say, you know, we all have a way of finding each other. Yeah. And so here we are. We found each other.
That's right.
Yes. Star Wars collector junkies all together. But so from there, I got into all the things that all of my friends were into also, which was then the action figures came out. And it seemed just like for a few years, all of my friends, had to varying degrees a Star Wars collection. And often we would pool together everything we had and just have Star Wars mania. And it was a lot of fun. My friends would start to outgrow things, and they would their fandom would fade off into the sunset. I held on for as long as I could up until Return of the Jedi. And then when those action figures came out, I think I had decided to myself that I was an adult. I was moving on from 8th grade into high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was ready for all of the young adult adventures that would lay in front of me. Well, I guess after a couple of years of that, I got kind of bored. I was riding home junior year. I hitched a ride with a friend of mine, and he said, "Okay, I'll take you home, but I hope you don't mind. We have to stop at this toy shop to go pick up something for my nephew's birthday." And so I said, "Oh, okay, great." For me, being a junior in high school, I thought it was weird that I had a friend who was already an uncle, for starters. So I was like, "Wow, this is a pretty exotic era we live in." So we got to this toy store. It was Clippers Toy Shop on Waukegan Road in Glenview, Illinois, just north of the northern suburbs of Chicago. And and we went in there. I'm surprised I didn't wait in the car, but I figured, what the heck, it's a toy shop. I went in with the guy, and there was this big bin of all of these Power of the Force action figures with the coin and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, holy cow, this is the first time I may have even seen Star Wars action figures in years. And so I snatched up a few of them, and with whatever money I had. And then the next day I went back and I snatched up a lot of them. And so here I had a collection again. Now now my collection is all these holes have been filled in from all these eras. And I started getting really interested in possibly completing the collection. And there were just a few holy grails out there for me to conquer. So basically, I went off to college. I did all this stuff, moved out, and I just didn't. Star Wars was really off the map, late 80s, early 90s. No one was really talking much about Star Wars. Every once in a while it would pop into my life somehow, like the day I discovered the West End Games source books.
Oh, yeah.
Like 1989 or whatever.
Those are great.
Oh, finally, someone's writing books about Star Wars like this. I thought it was great. We find out what species the Hammerhead is in all of those books, and names for all of these characters too. It was just really amazing. So still, though, things were really on the down low as far as Star Wars collecting went for me for a few years, until about 92 when 91 with the Zahn book, and then 92 with the Dark Empire comic series got me into collecting comics. So I made it my goal to collect all the Marvel comics from that era. Issue by issue, by the way. I didn't buy anything in bulk, and I was finding these back issues for like $2-3 a piece. It was a fantastic thing to collect out, because it still felt like at that time Star Wars was something that was forgotten about. And I didn't know many people who were fans. I think there was this one kid at a radio station I knew who was up to speed with what was going on with Star Wars publishing and stuff. And he put me in front of a computer, and it was the very first time I ever went online. This is like 1993, 94 maybe. And so I said, show me where you can find all that publishing information about Star Wars books. So I found some website, and then I printed up the thing. So I knew like the Star Wars publishing release schedule for the next 5 years. I thought it was amazing insider information that I had.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays we take that for granted, but back then it was just like, holy crap.
That was probably the big time for a podcast. For sure.
Yeah. So as things just started unfolding, as the 90s moved along. George brought back Star Wars in the theaters with the special edition. Oh, the Hasbro. Okay, let me get to that with the Hasbro action figures.
Yes.
I know this guy in Chicago. His name's Bill Leff. I've known him for a long time. And he is one of the top toy collectors in the Midwest. He has amazing collections of all these incredible toy lines, from Migos to Micronauts. And of course, Star Wars is very big on, high on his radar. And, he has some cool, rare things in his collection, like the Palatoy Death Star. To some of our friends who listen in England, they don't realize it. They may not realize it, but that thing's incredibly rare in the States, the Palatoy Death Star. But Bill Leff had one. And so Bill knew all this stuff going on, and he told me, he's like, they're bringing back Star Wars action figures. They're going to bring back the Kenner name. They're going to have the, Power of the Force 2, all of this stuff. And then when I saw the very first photos of Luke and Han and all that, and they were all roided up like He-Man, I thought it was I'm like, this is some kind of joke. This can't be happening for real.
Wow.
Sure enough, it was. So I was working actually in the northern suburbs, not far from where my parents live and where I grew up. And I pulled off the road and went into the same Toys R Us that I was in the 70s, where I scored my very first vintage action figures. They were new back then. They weren't. But I went to that same Toys R Us, went down the same aisle, and I found the Power of the Force 2 action figures for the first time ever. And I just couldn't believe it. It was just like this, this moment where everything came full circle. And here I was buying Star Wars action figures, but now as an adult, but going to that same aisle in the same Toys R Us, checking out, everything about it was just really surreal. And, that was before they redid the floor plans for Toys R Us's. So this was still, they had like just long aisles. It was almost more like a supermarket. Nowadays with Toys R Us, it's kind of broken up a little bit and the aisles are small. But back then it was just, it's like a big warehouse, almost this amazing magical warehouse where you could find Star Wars figures. So that got me back into it. And so from that day forward, I've been a completionist as far as the 3 3/4 line goes. Figures only. I do have some vehicles, play sets, what have you. But I've been very aggressive about hunting down every 3 3/4 inch figure that has come out since the revival in the mid 90s. And I've kept my head above water pretty well. There aren't too many holes in the collection, but nowadays I find myself going back and filling in the holes in my vintage collection, especially boxed items, because me and my brother, we had the foresight to save all the boxes from everything. And we had the rare stuff too, like the JCPenney Cloud City or the Sears Cantina with the blue snaggletooth. We had 2 of those. We had the original early bird envelope and all of that stuff. We had all of that. And we lost it all in the classic sump pump malfunction in the basement.
That is the worst. That always happens. I had my dishwasher, the water hose busted, and my gal comes out one morning and she's like, I hear this weird noise. And I go in the basement, and that's where my toys are. And it's the worst thing you can think of. There's the water trickling down, and it's hitting everything. And I'm just like, no.
Awful. I've heard other stories. They're nightmares. It's just terrible. We lost a lot of record albums too. A lot of good vinyl. But so I've been going to some good toy shows, and I've been finding some boxed vintage stuff, and that stuff is now starting to take up more and more space in my Star Wars room. The Star Wars room, though, it's hanging in there pretty good. I'm actually doing this show from it right now, which is not typical. Usually I do podcasting from my basement, but I'm actually having a studio built, so I won't be podcasting next to the water heater anymore. And I'll make it all Star Warsy in there too. It'll be very Star Warsy,
like a Death Star console or something like that, right?
So that would be great. But to this day, though, it's like my collecting habits still are pretty much the same as they were from day one. I collect the action figures, the trading cards, and the comic books. And that has always been the core of my collecting. And here we are 40 years later. Somehow it's still sociably acceptable for us to be doing this stuff. Bravo, Generation X.
Yeah, I know.
Plowed
We're
ahead.
still doing it, right?
We embraced youth culture, and we proved to the world that you can make it to your late 40s and not grow up. That's the most important thing I take out of Star Wars. You know, it was on my 47th birthday last year. I was having lunch with some guys that I do some work with. Excuse me. And you know, I was like, yeah, well, you know, it's my birthday today. And they're like, oh my God, it's your birthday. How old are you? I said, I'm 47. They're like, bullshit. Oh, sorry. They said,
that's okay.
They're like, no way, you're not. You are not 47. And I said, yes. They're like, I thought you were 37. I said, well, see, that's the power of Star Wars. It keeps you young.
Keeps you young.
It keeps you young. My friend Steve Sansweet. Okay, that guy's in his early 70s. You wouldn't know. I mean, he's a ball of energy.
Wow. I met Steve like 2 years ago. I would have never known that.
Yeah. He's a ball of energy, enthusiasm, passion. It's never dying. And it just keeps you young forever. So that's what I love about Star Wars the most. And that's why I keep coming back to it. Why I collect. I like to collect because it makes me feel like I'm closer to the actual universe itself. You know, I love the artwork. I love the just the tribute to it all, you know, just to be able to surround yourself in all of this great memorabilia is fantastic. And of course the manufacturers know that, and that's why they overproduce all of this stuff and make us slaves to plastic. Exactly. But still, but it's fun. It's fun. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, you know, you could be doing with your time and money that is, that's not going to do anyone any good. This at least provides you with a way of expressing your love and passion for Star Wars, and it gives you actual, you know, collecting goals are always fun, and it's something that just keeps the enthusiasm going in you at all times. So that's what I love about collecting.
That's great. How are you guys with the changing landscape? You know, Disney has bought Star Wars, and Hasbro doesn't really seem to do what they've done in the past. I notice you guys talk about it on your show quite a bit. Toys, you've talked about toys more. Is that something that you guys have brought to the forefront again?
Well, you know, it just seems like there's not the variety that there used to be.
That's right.
It seems like there's not the quality that there used to be. And also the accessibility to a lot of things sometimes is just a rat race. I still don't own an Admiral Krennic action figure. Why is that? I mean, come on, you know, I don't like playing games. And I think the way that Hasbro sometimes distributes the action figures is a way of playing games with the consumer. And I don't think it's fair. And I think there needs to be, they need to pay more attention to that. It's been that way for years. But, you know, I still enjoy collecting. I'm still very happy that Hasbro has the license because I enjoy the level of consistency, you know, knowing that essentially it's been the same manufacturer for 40 years from Kenner to Hasbro, of course. But I don't know, guys, I told you that I've been leaning more towards collecting vintage. So I think that in itself speaks volumes.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously,
I've done
I connect more to the vintage, obviously.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. But that has been a shift that has occurred over the course of the last 3 or 4 years.
And that's where I've been filling my holes mostly too, just with the vintage. I've even entertained starting to customize vintage, which is a little bit out there, but there's so many great sites that actually do that, and they really turn out good too. You know, making them look vintagey. You know, it's kind of an art form in itself. You know.
My brother's way into restoration, and I don't know how well that goes over with the collecting community, but I mean, nothing's being restored for purpose of resale.
For sure.
a lot of it is stuff that we actually beat on ourselves as kids. It's just we're trying to, and he's learned all of these great restoration techniques and utilizing things like everything from sewing machine oil to UV lights, and he's way into it, and he's done some amazing work with some old beat up pieces of vintage memorabilia that's ready for the trash heap. He even figured out how to get our old X-Wing to keep its wings in the locked position, or no, I should say the unlocked position, in the X position. Have the S foils in attack position, to be more clinical. He figured out a way to make them lock open, and we haven't been able to do that since 1978. So, it's really cool that he's doing that. I don't know. I mean, maybe there are people who are doing things like that and putting them out for sale. As long as they say that this has been restored, it's a restored item. I don't have any problem with it.
I hear you. Yeah, and that's really what has prompted this show. We really just want to make things that we feel are necessary in the Clone Wars, and just characters, unsung heroes we call them, or just background characters that are really interesting. I like the weird ones, and I definitely have one coming up here. I actually have my first time reveal tonight, and it's going to be Size Noodles. But before we go into that, we know that Dave talked about how the Hutts, they just love to have a good time, right? Don't they? And they have this big elaborate number, actually, while they're in the episode. We see it's kind of a little song and dance, very similar to this little number here, the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Did you notice the kind of the resemblance, kind of the similar feel that it had?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it was a total lift. As a matter of fact, I think when the show was released, I believe that it was revealed probably on StarWars.com or somewhere that was a direct inspiration for that sequence. But I'll tell you what, those dancers, that wardrobe leaves little to the imagination, doesn't it? And
Sure,
I thought you
does.
were going to say that was your next big customizing reveal. And
boy, I'd like to make one of those. I'd like to make one of those at some point. I really love those. Those are really great. They did these characters that did really elaborate dancing. The Night Sisters. From this season and season 4. They had these really fluent movements, and just like, oh my goodness, look at that.
yes.
Are we in a rated R movie here, or is this a kid show?
Well, it's good stuff. It's classic Lucas.
Yeah, and I love how he connects everything. And so I'm going to go just right into Size Noodles. And I thought it was great when they brought her into this. The bridging the gap, that's probably my favorite part of the Clone Wars. You find OT characters falling into the show. And I was just happy when I saw this, because it just looked so strange and weird. So where do you stand as far as like the Size Noodles? Do you like the special edition one, or do you really want the classic one that's dancing to what is it, Fleetwood Mac, from the 70s? Do you like that one? Or
well, if you're asking me, I don't like either of them, and all you have to do is watch the end of the episode to find out why.
So here's some examples of what I was talking about. This is the special edition version, and that's the classic version. They're both really cool.
It reminds me of Q*bert, especially the classic one, painted orange, and you have Q*bert.
I know, and it's such a great weird character. It fit perfect in the Clone Wars, so I thought I'd share mine at this point. This is my version of Snooty, and I made her from scratch and everything. Wow. She just basically a mix of different parts, both sculpted and utilizing existing parts. I do have a kind of a parts map as part of it, but this is kind of one of the reasons I wanted to get her in here, because she's just so strange looking, you know. And I thought I pulled it off pretty good.
Wow, you really pulled it off. That thing is great.
I liked it enough to buy it. So.
Yep, Darth Daddy is one of my buyers, you know. So he definitely had to have this one.
I'll tell you what, I'll commission you to make a dozen of them so I can drive my Toyota Highlander right over her.
She's just no good for you, right? So here's an example of what I was referring to as my parts map. You can kind of see that we take the asset, it's the asset, and we just basically go by it, and we cut parts from existing characters. You can see cattle paraceti in there, Asajj Ventress, and even those Geonosian feet, the Geonosians. And so here's an unpainted version of the character, and I also utilize the soft goods. I think they're moving away from the soft goods, and that drives me crazy. I just really think that makes a classic looking figure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the Black Series 3 3/4 inch still has soft goods for the most part.
Mm-hmm. And I love the Gamorrean guards. I'd love to get around to them at some point, but we find her at this point, and she's trying to free Ziro because she has her own personal mission, and there they are getting it on.
That's right. That's right, Snooty. This is when I knew that she was gonna be all mine.
Yeah,
and I really believe that. I really believe that, boys. I really did. I thought I'd be introducing her to Mama, but then you know what happened.
I think we need to do that more often. You know what happened? You know, he's gonna take it a Solarine. What is that, like sandals? The intergalactic sandals, Solarine.
It's more like a Club Med, really. You know, kind of, sandals, sure, yeah. It's all inclusive.
And as we go through it, we realize that the Jedi are also trying to find him as well. And what is that power that Quaylen Voss has? Is where he can.
Is it called telemetry? Maybe.
Yeah, telemetry. He can basically touch something, and he can kind of see into the past and kind of see that he realized Ziro was actually at this place, but he's gone now, right? And they end up going to Mama's, and also Cad Bane is on the scene, and he actually wants to get involved with it because there's more money to be made, of course, right? And one of the customs I didn't show last week, you showed yours, but I actually didn't get around to showing mine, was my Toto, but he's a flying Toto. And basically I put a kind of an air can, one of those air can things sticking out of the bottom of him. So he's like hovering. And then those little jets there are from the R2-D2. That's what I used on mine.
Very cool. They should have made the figure like that, because it doesn't stand too well, and for display purposes. And also, I mean, you never see him actually walking. I mean, he would benefit from something like this, and they did it with other figures and accessories. So it would have been nice if they added that feature.
I agree totally. It just makes for a really great thing. We even see him steal Quaylen's lightsaber at the end of this episode, which is really interesting, I think. And before we go into that, we got Mama here, and oh my gosh, look at those pipes up at the top there. She's got just crap coming out of there, and it's just oozing down, and just. I mean, even Size Noodles was repulsed by Mama, right?
Yeah. Mama is an acquired taste.
Yeah.
Hey, has anyone customized the Mama yet? I mean,
not yet.
Anyone? Who's going to answer that?
I might actually do it. Now that I've done the Geonosian Queen, Katrina, I might actually get around to doing Mama.
Wow. That's incredible. You have to accept the challenge.
I will.
Maybe for Mother's Day.
Yeah, for Mother's Day.
I already did the little black creatures that are all over. Like a couple of years ago when he was a little kid, he sculpted a few of those little black creatures that are all over. So I could have him do the creatures, and I'll do the, Mama herself.
Yeah, those are called tupes. Tupes. They were toupees basically for what was the Marlon Brando hut? What was his name? Was it? Oh gosh, I don't remember his name off the.
Carl, I don't remember.
Yeah, one of those huts he had just kind of sitting on top of his head, but she had a whole bunch of them, didn't she? They were just stacked.
Guys, they can go almost like a beehive.
Yeah,
like Mark Simpson.
Man,
it's so absurd. It's just so absurd. This episode really had a lot to it, though. I mean, they're hopping all over the place. They start off at Gardulas, then they move to Mamas, and then they're in the swamp, then they get the Mamas, and then they end up on Teth. I love episodes that just jump all over the place because it packs in so much. And something happens here. You know what happens.
Yeah. And she had a voice herself too. It was like a cross between Macy Gray and somebody else. I mean, it was just great. She was like, "Why would we do this?"
Yes, the Macy Gray. That's a good observation. Macy Gray for sure.
Absolutely. So here she is. She's blowing him away. He starts making up excuses. He's like, "Let's go to Solarine and let's get away together." And apparently he broke her heart. So, but she had a mission, and she was.
Oh, there it is, the horrible end.
Yeah, that terrible end. And this is our Easter egg. Do you recall what happens after she shoots him? What happens here? He falls over, and the Easter egg is basically in the form of words. Basically, he says, "What a world" at the end, and that harkens back to. Of course, the Wizard of Oz.
Right.
1939 Wizard of Oz, where she's melting, and she's like, "What a world! What a world!" You can barely hear him say it. He goes, "What a world!" And then he sticks his tongue out, and he's done.
What a world! But look, I make a very pretty corpse.
Yeah, sure does.
Very sexy still in death.
Yeah, apparently they mummify their dead too.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want them, you don't want them. What do they call it when you die and then they put you in the furnace when you?
Oh, okay. Cremation.
Cremation, of course. Yeah, I'm having a brain fart on cremation, but
you don't want to cremate a hut because the stench is terrible.
It's just a foul stench. Yeah,
it's like a barbecue from hell.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine what Mama would smell like. She would probably be terrible. But
well, Quinlan was very sensitive toward the whole time he's in there. He's holding his nose.
Yeah,
and, Obi-Wan, or as she calls him, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Yeah,
standing there. He's being diplomatic and cool and everything. And it just shows the difference. Obi-Wan is smelling the same horrible stench as Quinlan Voss, but Obi-Wan keeps his cool, and he's, like I said, he's always smooth and diplomatic. While Quinlan's there, he's actually pinching his nose shut.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh God, this is terrible. Somebody died."
Yeah.
It's like
who's going to replace my door?
Yeah. Oh, she's got the best voice. She's like, "Pass the slime hoax." Brother. Yeah. Where's his brother? We need to meet his brother. We never met his brother. Come on, Dave. Put it in Rebels. Put Ziro's brother in Rebels.
What's his name? 1?
Yeah.
2?
Yeah.
Mama.
Yeah. We leave Mama, and of course, they're on the trail, but they find Cad Bane at the end, and he gives a good fight, doesn't he?
Yeah, that was one of the better lightsaber battles.
It really was.
That we saw in the show.
And he shows off some legit martial arts knowledge and skill. And it comes off as realistic because something I don't like, and is any character displaying a skill that might match up to what a Jedi can do in terms of acrobatics. And we see it a lot in Rebels where Sabine is jumping all over the place like crazy. I don't think any character in Star Wars should be able to pull off moves like that unless they're tapping into the Force, unless they are trained as a Jedi, because you don't see anyone else doing that kind of stuff. And with Cad Bane and his combat techniques and his defense and everything, it all came off as very realistic to me, showing that he has a lot of skills to do things, but he still came off as very down to earth, not like a Jedi as far as what he was able to do. I mean, this shot right here where he's using the flamethrower, he's obviously capable of doing this because he has the jets on his boots. We know that bounty hunters incorporate this sort of weaponry when they're fighting against Jedi. Very Mandalorian, you know. And you'd have to imagine, what's the backstory on this? How does Cad Bane end up with all this gear? Did he defeat some Mandalorian or Death Watch warriors or what? That's never really been explained. I always thought that it was going to be a case of Cad Bane taking Boba Fett under his wing and then giving Boba Fett similar gear to what he uses, but it never really unfolded that way. But to me, Cad Bane seems like a very formidable and realistic opponent to put up against the Jedi, someone who could hold his own against them without mimicking what they do.
Yes, indeed. I agree. He's just amazing. He has no fear whatsoever. He goes in every single battle saying, I'm going to come out unscathed. Even when they catch him, you know, he gets away most of the time. He was awesome. He was awesome in this. And towards the end here, we'll just get done with, we'll wrap up the episode. We find out that this whole thing was orchestrated by Jabba the Hutt, and she brings back the diary so that Jabba has the power. You know, it seems like Jabba stands apart as well, even though he's part of that group, the families. I know that he likes to be in power as well, you know.
Well, I think he plays them against each other, so they kill each other off, and then he's able to consolidate all of the power amongst the Hutt families, you know, like the Godfather. Interesting to see that he has Sai handle his dirty work for him. Obviously, he holds a grudge against Ziro because Ziro kidnapped his son, Stinky, in the feature film. And so now Ziro has to pay for it. Again, showing that Ziro has no allies, he has no friends, he has no allegiances, and he is a marked man. Someone was going to catch up with him sooner or later. His safest place was in that Republic prison, no doubt about it. And what's also cool is a little bit of the way that they sort of bring Sai Snoodles together with Jabba the Hutt. So, you know, in addition to her payout for killing Ziro, she got lead singer gig in the Max Rebo band.
That is amazing.
So that was a bonus. That was a little added bonus there for Sai.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So at this point in time, we wanted to take a moment to look at Darth Daddy's version of his Ziro the Hutt that he did. And this is the second version you've done, Darth Daddy?
Yeah, I've done two. First one, I went through multiple stages with.
Yep.
But yeah, this one is actually one I just did for Jimmy.
Yeah, he's coming home with me.
Yep.
Right, you're gonna come. But that is awesome.
Tell us about it a little bit.
Yeah, basically, he's 100% sculpted. I took the Clone Wars Jabba, but I basically reworked it, and I actually did a Making Ziro YouTube tutorial for anyone out there who was curious about how to go about it, how to make it on their own. You could find that on the Customs for the Kid channel. It's the same channel that we're broadcasting this on right now. So if you just scroll through the videos in the channel list, you can come across the Making Ziro tutorial. And for all those people at home that, you know, just want this figure in their collection, this gives you the breakdown on how to go about making them.
Excellent.
But I ended up working it out. So all these rings are actually held on with magnets. This is the up here, the headdress attaches with magnets. And I was even able, like on my first version, you can't open his mouth, but on Jimmy's version, it actually kept the articulating mouth, and I was able to keep that feature in there. And I'm wondering if I go to the video, if I can show that detail. Let me just at least mute it. I just don't know where in here. So basically, I'm just showing how you have to cut away these extra flaps here to get that straight across look. And this is actually my first version that I did. And Jimmy, this is actually yours before it actually becomes the one that it is. But I
thought you approved him. Oh, look at that. That's hideous.
Yeah, so I had to basically cut away everything below, so that way his jaw didn't stick out too much. I had to like sand this button away. And I'm trying to see, I think it's towards the end. Maybe if I jump ahead here. You can see how I added in all the different sculpting. And then there you go. You can see how I kept that articulating jaw in place.
Wow.
Nice.
But yeah, I think when it's all said and done, it's still kind of, I'm showing how to fabricate the headdress piece. With that, I basically just used the safety tab on like a vitamin bottle because it maintained the flexibility, and the feathers itself are just sculpted. And I think the piece down below, I guess, which would be over here, I just used a bread fastener. I just cut off a little thin strip to, glue everything together just to make that all work. And then, yeah, then once you have it all assembled, and those are all the magnets.
That's
to hold these in place. Because on mine, I had originally, when I did my first one, the rings on my tail don't come off, and that was something I kind of always regretted. And I was like, oh, if I ever do another Ziro, I'm gonna make it so the rings basically just hold on with magnets instead. That way you could do the version from the film itself, or you could do you could have the Hunt for Ziro version where he doesn't have any of the jewelry on.
Wow.
So yeah, and then in the end, I had to basically take it. So it also has glow in the dark paint on it. So if you ever want to set up like a blacklight diorama scene, he would actually have his tattoos glow under a blacklight.
Nice.
So first I did this thin coat of lemon yellow, and then I did a second coat with the neon. That way, the yellow like really stands out.
Well done.
And then,
how many hours did it take you to do this?
Oh, geez, like 24.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, wow. It takes a while, but it's worth it in the end, And then that's basically the finished piece there. And then I think I'm probably going to show how it articulates once it's all done. But yeah, that's basically the whole process. And yeah, you can see how the mouth still goes, and it works, if you just twist the arm like the original Jabba.
Wild.
Yeah. And that's why we do it. We got to have these characters. Why couldn't we get this character?
Yeah, he was one that I didn't understand why we didn't get him.
Mm-hmm.
The lack of Ziro. I mean, especially when you consider you have access to a general loathsome action figure, but you don't have Ziro. Ziro's a star. I'm a star, baby.
Yep.
But they get the Ziro. I have a long checklist of action figures from Clone Wars that I wish they manufactured, like a latter-day pre-Vizsla, or of course Darth Maul, Spider Maul. I mean, come on, who wouldn't have paid a few extra dollars to get that action figure? I think a lot of us would have.
Oh yeah, I'm doing the Spider Maul now.
Ooh, that
we have just a bunch of customs that we've done, and you can definitely check our stuff out at our different areas on his webpage, which is Custom for the Kid, and my page is on Facebook. We do different stuff. I do sell some of my customs, so A lot of them are gone, unfortunately. But I still do
bought
have.
a good portion of the Clone Wars one.
You bought a good portion of them.
Yeah, I think I probably have. I know I have over 40 of your customs at this point.
Wow.
That's awesome.
You know, guys, you might not know this, but I have done various forms of customizing action figures, probably about 100 of them over the years.
That's
fantastic.
Yeah.
You should put up some kind of place where you could show them all, like either on, the Rebel Force Radio page, and just create like a little album of all the stuff you've made.
You know, I should at least commit them to photography in some way. But it's primarily repaints. I did a little minor sculpting here or there. Most notably, I created a Cantina bartender action figure before there was any. I took the old Rancor Keeper, and I actually took the sculpty and the shirt for him, and I did that with a few minor, but it was a lot of painting, head swaps, limb swaps, to various degrees of success.
Yeah.
But it was just something. It was something fun to do because there was a lack of action figures. It took me a while to get into it because I had grown up with the vintage action figures, and at that point in time, I was like really cherishing them and acting like that they were 24 karat gold and everything like that. So I was always afraid to start customizing action figures because I had always Star Wars at rarity or something. That there couldn't be anything further from the truth. But so I took to customizing and looked at some very early websites that you guys probably wouldn't even remember. I'm talking, like I said, early days of the internet, 1994. I would look on the AOL boards for customizing tips.
Yes.
I would. There was this one guy. He had I remember his name. His name was Tung, Tung. Tung, okay?
Yes, Tung Najian. Yeah.
That's the guy.
You can still find him on Custom Crossroads on the Rebel Scum forums. Believe it or not, you can still find that on some of the various collecting sites. You can still find some of these people, and even Darth Daddy's page. He's kind of like a custom curator. That's how we kind of met. What you do, like, you can explain it better than I can, Brian. Tell us a little bit about Custom for the Kid.
Yeah, I guess like for the last 7 years now, I've just been taking like the greatest hits of everybody in the community and trying to document the best pieces that they have. And what I do is I created a directory. So if you ever want to buy any of their customs or just get an idea of, you have maybe a character in mind that you want in your collection, I basically put a great sample of all, I guess, the most notable artists so far, because I'm constantly adding. I just added somebody last week. But I probably have almost a good 100 artists from all over the world, as far as like Thailand, the UK, Australia. And yeah, I've just been trying to get as much of that documented as I can. And because not everybody really hangs out in the forums unless you're actually doing the art yourself. I've just been trying to create a place where instead of having to dig through the threads to like go through 54 pages of maybe somebody's work, you could just go watch a video and see all 54 pieces, in maybe a 3 to 5 minute video. And I just have a whole page. It's called the Customs I Wish I Owned page. It's on my blog, and you click on that. It'll tell you a little bit about each artist. It'll give you links if you want to keep following their work, because I've done so many artists now, it's really hard to update everyone's videos on a regular basis. I'd probably have to quit my job and make that a full-time job. But yeah, it's kind of fun, and it's been a great way to make a lot of friendships with a lot of people in our community.
For sure. But it's great to do customs. You see yourself doing more customs, Jimmy, in the future?
Yes, I do. I don't know why I haven't. might be having something to do with these crazy kids I'm trying to raise. Never giving me any peace.
Not enough time to pick, right?
Maybe, you know, right. One of the things that kind of got me away from customizing was just the fact that Hasbro was creating action figures representing all of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did a good job for
but that trend is kind of moved along. I mean, there's so many figures from The Force Awakens and Rogue One that I would love to have in my collection. And of course, there's time, you know. I mean, they don't have to put them all out right at once. But why are we still having this conversation today and not owning a TFA Luke in our action figure collection?
That's true.
I mean, what is this absurdity? It just seems like that people are asleep at the wheel or something, or they just are completely not into what collectors have been into for a long time. This new focus on the 6-inch figures, while I like the 6-inch figures, they're not the same. They're not the 3 3/4 inch. That's what Star Wars collecting is. But they want to shift away from that. That might be something else that's kind of pushing me toward collecting vintage more as a hobby focus as opposed to going out for the newer stuff. Just because part of me feels like Hasbro says they don't care about the 3 3/4 inch collector, and they'd probably be happy if we just went away for good. So, I mean, that's unfortunate but that's the message I hear.
Yeah, that's what we're
Look at
getting
Toy
to.
Fair.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look at Toy Fair. It's 6-inch, 6-inch,
and then 4 repacks.
You're making 10 more bucks a figure. Good for you.
Yeah, we're getting that a lot, and I think that's what's
you know.
Go ahead.
Is that right?
Yeah, honestly, it has. Over the course of the last few years, you know, we've been following this. You know, as Star Wars fans, you know, we're so connected to the toys along with the fandom. The fandom, you know, it's become part of it. You know, it walks hand in hand. That we feel like we have so many customs to share. Why not do it on this avenue? You know, because we are showing a show that was a long time ago, right? It's not current, right? But we feel like we need to do this because we're not getting what we were getting in the past, you know, and it's become a real kind of a sore spot for us, for customizers mainly, but collectors as well. You know, I could tell you were explaining it, and that's perfect. Yeah, they're focusing too heavily on something we don't necessarily want.
Yeah, but you know, they look at their focus groups and their test groups and all that stuff, and you know, I think they want to always attract the younger collector, the kids. Obviously, these are toys, so they must determine that kids of today would prefer the 6-inch action figures. But I don't know. I think that's a shame. I think there's plenty of adult collectors out there who would keep the line afloat, no matter what the test groups, the kid test groups are. You know, maybe a little more focused.
Yeah.
You know, that's the bread and butter. That's what put them on the map, is a 3 3/4 inch. I just don't think that collecting tastes have changed no matter what the age is to such an extreme. Yeah. But I think they're trying to orchestrate that because they know they get more. You know, if they could just get the product out on the pegs, they wouldn't even be worrying about what the bottom line is because fans would buoy that, you know, and make their shareholders happy. But for crying out loud, they can't even meet the demand most of the time. So
that's true. That's true. Well, dang, that was a great show. That was excellent. Really appreciate you coming on with us. When I'm not here, you can find me on Peak Obi-Wan Custom Creations on Facebook, and I'm also on Instagram at Peak Obi-Wan Custom Figures. You can check out some of my stuff there if you want to. Where can we find you, Brian, when you're not here?
You can find me over at the Customs for the Kid blog. From there, you can get all our links, so you can find us over at Facebook, our YouTube channel, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and Google+, and we also have an account on Pinterest. But yeah. Anytime you want to check out custom figures, we got plenty.
Excellent. And of course, we got to thank our guests. Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun, Jimmy Max. Give us some stuff. What are you doing right now with some of your shows?
Well, of course, Rebel Force Radio is a weekly show. We release new episodes every Friday where we talk about just about everything you can think of with Star Wars. Star Wars news. We're a very news-driven show. We do a lot of interviews, a lot of entertainment. New episodes every Friday. We also do episodes focusing in on Star Wars Rebels, Star Wars Rebels Declassified. Comes out on a fairly weekly basis when the show is in season. And we have a lot of other great programming over there at Rebel Force Radio. You can find it all at rebelforceradio.com. Find Rebel Force Radio on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you find podcasts. And if you want to reach out to us, we can be found on Facebook and Twitter. So we're really gearing up towards Star Wars Celebration Orlando at this point. Looking forward to doing all sort of cool things at that show, hanging out with tons of our fellow Star Wars fans and checking out the cool panels and everything.
Man, I wish we could be there. I am definitely not going to be there, but I'll certainly be at C2E2 if you're going to be there. We could catch up there.
Great, yeah. Let's meet up. That's the weekend after Orlando.
Yeah.
And I've always made it a tradition to stop by C2E2 and man, let's hang out. That'd be fantastic. I'd love to see you there. Thank you guys so much, Darth, Nobi. You guys are killing it. And I really enjoyed this conversation, man. Thank you so much. Maybe we could do it again sometime.
Anytime you want to come on. We really appreciate your insight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Take care, everybody, and may the Force be with you. Always.
May the Force be with you.